today's speaker, Scott Wennerdahl, is the instructional designer and education support for education support services at the College of Fine and Applied Arts at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And we have Crystal Sheu, is currently the instructional technologist for education support services at the College of Fine Arts and Applied at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Scott and Crystal.
Hello. Can everyone hear me okay? Give me a green check box if you can. Awesome. All right. So welcome. We're going to talk about supporting the 7 principles with Blackboard Learn. So the goals for today would be to explore the 7 principles of good practice in undergraduate education. These were written by Chicory and Gamzin in 1991. How many of you have heard about these principles before, the 7 principles? Okay, yeah, good number, 14, 15. Yeah, so these are familiar to you, it sounds like. We're going to suggest some linkages of those principles to frameworks and tools within Blackboard Learn. And throughout the session, we're going to showcase some of these examples that illustrate effective pedagogy and instructional options related to course structure and navigation, activities, assignments, and communication. So some of the key questions for today would be, what are the 7 principles and how do they apply to teaching online? What approaches and tools can Blackboard Learn potentially support involving these principles? And the last one's really important, how do we know if we're successful in honoring the principles with our application of Blackboard Learn tools? So these are the 7 principles. A lot of you said you knew them already, but we'll overview them briefly. Those of you who are familiar, notice we changed things up a little bit. We're actually going to start looking at diverse talents and ways of learning, which I think traditionally in Gamzin's presentation, it was number 7. It was not the first one. So as Crystal and I looked at these principles, we decided to organize them differently for the presentation. Those of you who know the ADDIE model of instructional design, the analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate, will notice that actually this is sort of an analyze activity over here. These might be considered development and design. And as you come across here for feedback and active learning, reciprocity among students, implementation, and you might consider encouraging contact between students and faculty, potentially to be formative and summative evaluation. So not really a focus, the ADDIE model of our presentation, but just we were surprised that when we organized these, the ADDIE model was revealed. So one of the complexities is applying the tools. Is Blackboard Learn has a lot of tools, and they center around structure of content, content items themselves, communication tools, assessment, and evaluation. So when I work with faculty, Crystal and I are working with them, and they're overwhelmed by all the tools that Blackboard Learn presents. So looking at these tools through the lens of the 7 principles is one way to approach all the opportunities that you have in using Blackboard Learn. So measures of success, the Blackboard exemplary rubric is one way of gauging your course design. The QUACI from ION, Illinois Online Network, and then Quality Matters are some rubrics you can use. Student performance in the course, and then always formative and summative evaluation are ways that we can measure our success. And so for today's presentation, we're going to look at basically a fictitious instructor, but understand all these quotes that you're going to see actually came from actual instructors. They came from actual work that Crystal and I did with faculty in using Blackboard Learn and designing their online courses. And so for each quote, really, we're going to look at the ADDIE framework to analyze, design, implement, and evaluate. Okay, so scenario number 1, Crystal's going to be reading the quote from the instructor, and both of us will go about analyzing it.
Okay, so the first quote would be asking, some of the students are not fully engaged and do not appear excited. on occasion, students have commented on the fact that all of the content in my course is text-based. Lastly, I know that students are working together outside of the class on their individual assignments and projects. As I cannot stop it, is there a way to use it as an advantage?
Okay, so again, this is not an actual quote, but these pieces, parts, all came from experiences that we've had and maybe experiences that you've encountered, or if you're an instructional designer, with faculty that you've worked with.
I looked at it before. I will give it back to you because I'm on a conference.
So breaking down this quote, not fully engaged, don't appear excited. All the content is text-based, and students are working together outside of the class. So what can we learn from that? Okay, the course is text-based. They're not excited. And the students all complete basically the same assignment that's chosen by the instructor. So what are some ways that we can actually honor their diversity, honor their ways of learning, honor their skills, whether it's writing or images, video, what have you? How can we honor their diversity? So perhaps we can provide multimodal delivery of content, right? Expanding from text. Perhaps we can have a variety of individual and also group activities and assignments so students can demonstrate their knowledge. So I'm sure we're all doing individual assignments. What if we add some group ones in here too? And then this one's important. Allow for students to choose a topic related to the assignment discussion or the project. So the instructor may have some options students can choose from. The last bit here now is what tools can Blackboard Learn, what can we leverage that Blackboard Learn offers. So again, items, files, web links, and mashups are all part of Blackboard Learn, and many of these can include multimedia resources. So using a web link to link to some multimedia, using one of the video mashups, and then again within your files and your items within Blackboard Learn, and those blank pages are also an option. You could infuse pictures, video, other multimedia. We talked about a variety of group and individual. So discussion boards can be group-based. Wikis, blogs, journals, quizzes, and surveys can be employed. And then the last one is student choice of topic. So a discussion board, not with just one option, one question prompt, but how about 3 to choose from? And the student can choose the one to answer that interests them the most. And then the group sign-up tool within Blackboard Learn with different topic choices. So one project we have right now is where students are actually designing a museum wing in their art history class, and there's a list of, I think it was like 25 different topics to choose from, and they group themselves in this, groups of 5 students. So yes, we want individual assignments that are on a specific topic, but we can also shake it up a little bit and honor diversity by letting students choose their topic when possible. Some examples here, I think. So, here's video. So I'm using here an item within Blackboard Learn. I'm also using a learning module. So in our courses here at FAA, Crystal and I designed these learning modules to organize the content and structure it, and then present content here on the right-hand side. We're also very careful to preface any media. So why is this important? What are some guiding questions, even some new words, vocabulary for students to think about as they watch the video. Here we embedded the video into the item. We also created a link to it that would launch a new window. Here's our next situation.
While my syllabus and supporting documents are clearly written, some students still have confusion in knowing what to do, how to do it, where to do it, and when to do it by. Not to mention that often fail to see the relevance of the assignment within the lesson and or course as a whole. I just don't know what more I can do to make it clear for them.
So this is a very common statement we hear. here at, in face-to-face classes that use the web as a supplement, Blackboard Learn as a supplement, and we always hear it every semester by a few students in online courses. So again, confusion in knowing what to do, how to do it, where to do it, and when to do it by. Sometimes I see in course designs where the designer or the faculty member organize things by type. So there might be a quiz folder containing all the quizzes, and there might be a reading guide and a lecture folder and whatnot. So things are organized by type. This causes some confusion because students have to go back to the syllabus as their sole source of information and kind of make sense of the course. Consider an 8-week course that we run in the summertime that has 6 quizzes. It would be very difficult, if not impossible, to know just by looking at the quiz folder which quiz I should do and when. Also, organization materials were somewhat uninspiring. Maybe they were disconnected from the course goals, from the learning objectives, and don't call students to action. We want students to think a certain way, feel a certain way as they're taking this course. What can we do to help? And directions to complete course activities were centrally located, again, in the syllabus. So I'm not saying the syllabus is not an important document. It is. But let's have instructions closer to the actual tools, perhaps. Which leads us to this, group materials by lesson to create a clear navigation and natural flow. We could include goals and objective statements right in the activities themselves, and possibly organize these into folders, containers with action verbs. And then lastly, clear lead-ins, directions, and supports for course elements like reading, assignments, and so on. And we'll show you some examples of those in a little bit. So again, the content folders within learning modules, that creates that nice table of contents that I'll show you here in a little bit. Items and files inside content folders, which really become headings in the table of contents in the learning module, and then description fields in the tools. When is it due? Why am I doing it? How do I do it? And then the last one, items, files inside content folders, and descriptions and tools. So let's look at some of those. Here's an example of a Blackboard learning module. You can see it here. It has a table of contents. Read and watch and remember, understand are all content folders. And they actually kind of create these headers in which content is embedded underneath. And here you can see that we're actually leading into the lesson a little bit here. We have the objectives for it, and even a rundown of what to do. Read and watch, followed by some other material. But Bloom's Taxonomy is not the only way we can organize this. So our goal, Crystal and I here at FAA, is to support faculty in online courses, but also support them in e-learning generally. We're striving for a consistent structure across all of our courses, whether it's face-to-face or online, but also allow for some flexibility. So again, here's a learning module using the content folders as headers based on Bloom's Taxonomy. You might say, well, that's fine, but how about Gagne's 9 events of instruction? Here's a way to sequence those activities. Problem-based learning. So, this actually might be, you might say, well, Bloom's Taxonomy is great for my weekly lessons, but for the semester-long group project, maybe I want a special content, a special learning module that's, semester-long, that's organized around problem-based. Curtis Bonk in his R2-D2 model of read, reflect, display, and do. And then the last one maybe is action research. But the possibilities here are endless, and again, we're going back to what I said about calling students to action, right? It's clear here by these action verbs what students are going to do. Clear instructions and details presented at the scene. So again, rather than going back to the syllabus module or even the prologue or preface or introduction for the module, let's have instructions built right in. So here is the instructions for an activity laid out nicely. Supporting resources. Are there web sites, web links, and resources that students should use in this activity. Rather than put them into folders or other places, put them right there in the tool, in the item, in the blank page. And then how to submit. It says here you're supposed to attach the document, upload your document, and here's a video from Blackboard on submitting an assignment. So we strive, every time we have a tool, we have a video and some instructions right there inside the tool.
So the third scenario is, I have strived to write and present a clear, unambiguous syllabus and supporting document to students at the very beginning of the course. Despite my efforts, students sometimes claim the policy information and other related material was not presented to them. During the completion of the assignment, students are also unclear on the expectation and evaluation criteria of activities and assignments.
So I mentioned before that syllabus is a very important document. Yes, we have instructions and how-tos in the activities themselves. But what about those general policies, those grading policies, communication policies? And if you're like me, students are, not all of them, but some of them will say, I was never presented that information. I didn't know about that. So is there a way we can set high expectations, right? This is a principle, high expectations. What can we do? So let's analyze the paragraph here. Keywords here are students dove into the first lesson assignments, right? They maybe bypassed the syllabus completely and started working right away. And they didn't review, and they didn't understand, and there were some issues. Students expressed confusion as to the assignment's focus, expectations, and the evaluation criteria. So really two things are happening. One is the syllabus, which is a broad document about the entire class, and we can also talk about issues related to specific discussions, activities, and assignments. So what can happen here? Maybe we send a welcome letter and message to the student. So as you know, Blackboard Learn has a great email tool, and we can actually send a broadcast email to all the students right through Blackboard Learn. The other one's important: assign an orientation quiz or develop a student contract. And we'll look at one of those in a little bit. Create and publicize rubrics. So Blackboard has excellent rubrics that you can design. Students can see them right away before they actually undergo the activity, and you can use them to grade the work, and then students can review those numerical scores as well as any comments that you type into the rubrics feedback tool. Also, setting expectations by providing sample submissions and or make announcements to highlight quality activities and products. So one of these suggests we do this before students embark upon the activity, so we have a sample submission. And the other one, when things happen and we like what we're seeing, we make sure that we highlight that work. This translates into Blackboard Learn, again, the email or the announcement tool, the quiz or the item. Now historically, Crystal and I, when we worked on online courses, we're using a quiz that had questions like, I have read the syllabus, true or false. I have ordered the book, or I have it in my possession, true or false. And it was a quiz, and adaptive release, which is a feature in Blackboard Learn, allows things to show up or not based on criteria. In this case, you had to score 100% on that quiz. Those questions were asking you about your preparation before the first lesson or two would show up. That caused a little complication because students read quiz as points and then thought that they get course credit for that. We've opted now to use an item, which we'll show you in a little bit. It's basically a statement, it's some text within the learning module, actually before it, before the lessons, and they simply check a box to review it. And once they have checked that box, the lessons show up. Now I can't, and you can't, guarantee they've read the syllabus, but they checked the box, which means that they are taking responsibility for that. Again, the rubric tools are here. Settings and tools to associate rubrics with activities. Description fields and tools to include sample submissions. And then also the email or announcement tool can be used to highlight good student work. Some examples here are as follows. Here is the participant contract. This area here in Blackboard Learn is basically a content folder. Lessons are actually down here, but you can't see them yet. This item in Blackboard Learn is a statement, and here's the mark reviewed box. Once a student clicks on that, like so, then we can show them as many lessons as we wish. So again, they're here, but students don't see them until they mark it reviewed. Great way to channel students to make sure they don't jump in too soon. Sample discussion post is here. Here's a way to showcase, to say, hey, here's a model example of a discussion post or a writing assignment so students can better know what's expected of them. Next quote.
Students often begin the week without having read or lacking confidence in their mastery of the content at its conclusion. Even though I have clearly announced that my lectures are not simply a repeat of the textbook, some students will skip lecture and rely only on the textbook. Also, I feel that even the most attentive and conscious students will sometimes end the week of lectures discussions lacking confidence in their mastery of the content.
So analyzing this quote, and this happened this semester actually in dialoguing with the faculty member. Some students came to class unprepared. You know, they had not read the book, that chapter, before the Monday class. There's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday lecture, and there's a discussion section that they choose to take once a week. But, you know, they just came in cold. They had not prepared. So how can we help students in that situation? Sometimes students were unclear as to the turnaround time of receiving feedback. Students might be unsure about how to interpret the score if it's purely numerical. You know, what does 90 out of 100 mean when it's only numeric? And students sought to improve performance over time, but lacked a focused feedback mechanism to do so. So what can we take from this? What if we had self-assessment for students prior to and after the lecture section? Again, students coming into the week and students leaving that week with some sort of assessment that they can take and to gauge themselves. What if we were to include a clear grading process of turnaround times, timeline, and communication policies? Again, we talked about this before, you know, rubrics, right, that have clearly labeled categories and include the qualitative narrative for each of the numerical values. And these rubrics, again, will be presented before the students embark upon the assignment, are used to score, and are the actual thing that students look at to look at their feedback. So again, provide quantitative and qualitative feedback. Blackboard Learn tools to support this, the assessment tool. So in a class we have this semester, it's not an online class, it's that face-to-face one that meets Monday, Wednesday, Friday for lecture. We have a simple 5-question quiz due on Sunday night that is about the readings for the upcoming week. And also on that Sunday evening is due a simple 5-question or so quiz about the lecture content that they heard during that week. So it's an exit quiz and also an entry quiz. They get points for it. You know, there's 5 questions, and they're not stinger questions. They're really fundamental, basic questions about the reading. But it helps students get into the habit of, you know, entering the lesson well and being prepared, and also ending it knowing that they know the content for the midterm and for the final and for other activities. Items and files can be used here to outline the grading processes, the rubric tool we talked about before, and then again the feedback fields and the grading areas. And also new to Blackboard recently is inline grading, you know, the ability to mark up the Word document to make marks on it visually. So let's look at some of those. So here's a rubric. We have, again, this is the frequent contact discussion for Module 1. It has 3 categories here: innovation, feasibility, and grammar. It tells me how many points and percentages these are worth. So Blackboard Learn has 2 ways to tackle the rubric. You can actually hard code in points for it, but you can also base it on percent. I kind of like percent because a faculty member might come to me and say, you know that discussion that was worth 10 points, I'd like it to be worth 20 points. And what happens now, I have to go in and actually change points in the rubric itself. If you use the percentage method here, I simply change the score once. I change it from 10 to 20 for the point value of that, and the rubric does the work for me. And it does all the math on the point layout. So I like the percentage rubric quite a bit. What else do we have here? So here's inline grading. Again, I think relatively new to Blackboard Learn. I think it came out maybe in the summer. But basically the Word document can be uploaded to Blackboard assignment tool, and then you as an instructor can actually highlight it and make comments very much like Word, as the commenting tool. And students can actually see these marks in their feedback. So grader feedback can be written here, can be written on the side, and of course they get points in the end. In this case, it looks like they already get up to 10 points on this assignment. So inline grading, good for qualitative and quantitative feedback. Here's one more quote from our instructor. So on this slide, we're basically combining two. Oh, am I good? Okay. So on this slide, we're basically combining 2 of the principles. We're combining active learning, and we're combining reciprocity and cooperation among students. So let's analyze this paragraph, this quote. So only a few students actively participate in class discussion, since discussion was low stakes and was informally assessed based on impressions. So, this happens in face-to-face classes where, usually a few students might dominate, and it's a general impression of this, participation grade. Assignments in the course were only to assess students' individual comprehension of subject matter. An assessment of class activities, individual or group, was solely done by the instructor, and hence only the instructor supplied feedback. So a number of things are happening here. Let's analyze it some more. So maybe we utilize the discussion board to encourage all students, not just the active ones, but everyone, to perform a deeper reflection on course content and beyond, and thus fostering a learning community. Maybe we assign problem-based assignments and/or group projects, and again, we allow diverse student-centered, student-constructed media products. And then lastly, we open it for peer evaluation on student submissions, as well as on the collaboration process if it's a group project. So a number of things are happening here. We want to mix it up. We want to get students to have evaluations and feedback, not just from the instructor, but maybe from the students as well. We want to actually have students choosing their topics and working on projects in groups. So Blackboard tools to reinforce active learning, and Blackboard tools for reciprocity. Discussion board to deliver lesson-focused and/or learning community forums. So again, the lesson-focused one are the discussion question prompts focused on that lesson, but maybe somewhere outside of the lessons you have a learning community forum in which students are invited to share things they've read, things they're seeing on television and in the media, places they visited during the class, and create some learning community. Again, not graded here, but enriches the class. Discussion boards, wikis, blogs, and journals are all separate items within the course. These are also tools within group areas. So if you want a class-wide discussion board or a wiki or a blog, that is awesome. You can also group students together so they have their own private discussion board, wiki, and blog. And so right now, that museum project in which they're designing this wing of a museum, they're using the group tools for that. So they'll create their presentation, find resources, share them in preparation for their presentation to the class at the end of the semester. And also this helps too with students, I was told when we talked to the faculty member, they understood the timeline really well. They could think about the artworks chronologically, but they had a hard time thinking thematically. So we said, well, let's have the students choose the artworks, and they choose their theme they'd like to pursue, animal imagery, or Buddhism, tapestries, what have you, and have them choose the works to go into their presentation. So they're being constructive. And the last one here, reply and comments, rating functionality within different tools, and the assignment tool. So perhaps rather than just having the assignments uploaded to the instructor only, maybe some of those assignments actually go to the group and they can be peer reviewed. Maybe groups are peer reviewing their other groups' projects as they're completing those projects for the end of the semester. So again, not just the instructor, but other people, other students are involved in the process.
After the tone, state your name, followed by the pound or hash sign. Your conference is being recorded.
I get closed. All right, so here's the Learning Community Forum again. This is the ungraded. Give me a checkbox if I'm coming through still. There's a little telephone message that I heard. Okay, good. Learning Community Forum. Here is the ungraded, semester-wide, semester-long area where students are invited to submit class-related things. Beyond just grades, just beyond lessons. Group tools. Here's a group, animal imagery and Chinese art. Students in this group chose to be in that group. You can see them listed here. One thing I'll mention here is Blackboard does have a sample student, a demo user here in your course site naturally. At least we do on our campus. I've actually asked for 5 FAA accounts that I can test with. So I talked to the folks who manage Blackboard Learn on our campus, and I have 1 FAA, 2 FAA, and these are actually accounts I can enroll into my courses when I'm developing them and when they're implemented to test things out. Faculty also want to see what the student view is, authentically. Having a fake student account is very useful. But again, here you can see file exchange, blog, discussion board, tasks. Students can actually assign themselves tasks as they break down the assignment, a group wiki, and they can send email to each other very easily with the group tools in Blackboard Learn.
Okay, here's the last one. I'm hesitating to move online mostly because I have a large class. How is it possible to interact with the students or get them to know me personally and vice versa if we don't ever meet face-to-face? How can I tailor my instruction to accommodate their difference in background, level of knowledge, or interest? What's the best way to know how they feel about my course?
So when I introduced the 7 principles to you at the start of the presentation, I said we're kind of moving through an ADDIE model. And the last, ADDIE element, the E, meaning evaluation. So we're going to see a lot of evaluation, both formative and summative, I think, in this quote. So the instructor hopes to increase his or her visibility online, get to know their students, and interact more with them. That's a fantastic goal. The instructor is not sure whether he or she can tailor the instructions or provide support for current students. What are some ways we can support all students? Again, the 7 principles, so we struggled with this a little bit. How do we organize these principles? How do we give examples to each of the 7 principles? And we noticed a lot of the examples we had, weren't just set on one principle. They actually bled and we reflected in other principles. So I think this one is like that too. Instructor wishes to evaluate the effectiveness of the instructions, of the course itself, both formatively and summatively. So how about we post instructor information? How about we have an icebreaker activity at the start of the class? We have a virtual office hours. How about a survey on students to understand their background, level, and knowledge? We have a course right now, we have two actually, one in dance that actually has students film themselves dancing. So one of the survey questions there is, what is your background, what is your skill level in making videos and uploading videos? Include a course Q&A forum. And then the last one, collect summative feedback at the conclusion as well as formative during the course. Blackboard Learn tools to support this would be files and items, the Blackboard profile, discussion boards, and then the chat and Blackboard Collaborate. Our campus actually has a contract with Blackboard Collaborate, so Blackboard Learn courses can actually have the Blackboard building block, built right in. I, outside of the university, use Blackboard's course sites. Course sites has Blackboard built into that automatically. You can't record the session, but it has. I think I haven't found anything that doesn't have, other than recording, all the functionality of Blackboard Collaborate. Survey tools to collect data, discussion boards for students to share and have some icebreakers, and then the assignment tools themselves, so we can see how students are doing by the quality of their work. Maybe every module has a survey tool, and we can use some classroom assessment techniques, some questions there to give us some feedback on how students felt about those lessons in a formative way. Examples of these include, again, the About Me survey. So here, again, the dance class, they were making videos and uploading videos. So it's important for us to know at the start of the class what students are capable of. Have they uploaded a video? What systems have they used in the past? So in summary, through our experience in designing online courses, and I should say actually supporting faculty in face-to-face experiences who want to have a web presence in Blackboard Learn, and preparing for this presentation, we found that the 7 principles are well supported, can be well supported in Blackboard Learn, and it's likely the 7 principles also are attainable in other systems. The 7 principles are an excellent framework when designing individual activities, as well as considering the class, the course as a whole. In developing innovative and engaging experiences, utilize resources that exist. I go to a lot of conferences, workshops, what have you. I hear about tools and things like that. We try to have faculty use as much as they can within Blackboard Learn. Really push the envelope there before they branch out into other systems. It might include have other passwords and other technology baggage. So again, use resident tools and features. Blackboard documentation. Link to that documentation. There's a whole student set of documentation and videos that you can link to. You have the Blackboard tutorials. And then also, we're always looking at researcher articles, practitioner blogs to see what people are doing. So our university has a pretty active brown bag series, and when I can, I try to get out and go to other conferences to find out what people are doing, and also things that are available online. So now I think I'll open up to questions and answers for both Crystal and I.
Great, thank you so much, Scott. So there are a couple of questions that came in through the chat that, so Jim Vander Putin asked, why is it important to know how students feel about a course? Isn't it more important to know what they learn?
That's a good, Crystal and I both laugh. That's a good question. Well, I don't know. I think just from a personal take, you want to have students who are lifelong learners. You want students to take an anthropology course, whatever course it is, and I think as a teacher feel that they did enjoy the course, that they had a good feeling about it. But at the same time, again, those course rubrics and whatnot that we have, we know the students actually are learning the material as well as quote unquote feeling good about the class. We also want students coming back to our courses. We want students to feel good about taking the course from FAA or from the university. and come back and do more. Also, online courses in general, we don't want them to feel, have a bad taste about taking an online class. Many students I encounter, this is their first online class, so we want it to be a good one. And also, I'll close with this. Around this office, we talk about designing experiences sometimes more than designing courses. And so I think you see that reflected in the learning modules where, read, remember, reflect, and do. I'm designing right now a tea ceremony course. We have a Japan house on campus, and it's a authentic building, and you walk into a Japanese house, and you can have tea there. So this is an online class built around Japanese tea. And so she liked the idea of the learning modules, and she liked the idea of those labels like read and reflect, but she said, Scott, those aren't the ones I want to use. I want to use, meditate and reflect and contemplate. So again, I think, students are learning, but they're also feeling, and I think we create courses, I think, as much as experiences. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, and I think there's been some discussion back and forth in the chat too.
Yeah, I'll scroll down.
Then asked, okay, Tahis asked, did you provide orientation for online students?
That's a great question. One of the key things in our course, sometimes we call it lesson 0, certainly we call it orientation. And you notice that in the course design there was a welcome start here. Let me try to kick back to that. Where it's a lesson actually that before the actual lessons. Not that one. So yeah, so there's a syllabus module, an orientation module that students go through before they actually take the course. Here we go. So here it says greetings start here, or welcome start here. This is actually a learning module that contains the syllabus. It contains policy documents, anything that's class-wide. Sometimes faculty will actually put a welcome video in here. They'll put documents about the course, kind of generally outlining what they're going to be doing. And again, this is tied to that contract you saw earlier, where students have to click reviewed before the actual lessons, which are housed here, show up. So yeah, a very extensive orientation module is produced at the start of the course. Good question.
So Jewel asks, can she ask about an observer role? Jewel, do you have a specific question?
Does this relate to like a Blackboard Learn role, like instructor versus student and whatnot? I know that one of the things we're working on is a role, and I think I probably talked to Blackboard about this during one of the conferences I went to. The idea that we want someone who's an instructional designer, like myself and Crystal, who are in the course to have the instructor abilities, but not be like listed as the instructor. So you might be referring to something like an observer, where maybe my director wants access to the course and just wants to basically observe. So I'd have to look and see what the roles are in Blackboard. Observer might be one of them. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that she wrote specifically, how do you get the observer to see the student experience and not the personal name? I'm not sure if that could be done until unless you created a course copy and removed students' names.
Oh, so like, yeah, right. So when the course is well, we actually, here's something too. This might help solve your problem. We actually have, like, right now 3 courses that we call development shells. They're courses that we're building inside of, and then when we're finished, we actually copy that course to the production. So so it's tea ceremony development, right? And we're working on that one. When that's done, when we've built it, we actually won't teach with that course site. We actually copy it and teach with that second one. So in that regard, no students are ever added to the development site. So we could add a dean or a coordinator, a colleague, what have you, into that, and not have to worry about student names.
And then it seems Catherine Jewel had an update everything but discussion boards, wikis, and blogs. And then Catherine asked if you can explain inline grading. If not, we do have a product expert on the call who can explain it as well.
Well, I can tell you this my perspective on inline grading. We've used it a little bit. Is that when traditionally before inline grading, the Word document was uploaded, and then the instructor actually had to download it and mark it up, and it's a file management issue, right? You got to keep track of all these files, and what if they're all called SA1? Then you've got naming issues on top of that. So inline grading, basically, the instructor can see the document, and right inside Blackboard Learn, this is Blackboard Learn here, you can actually access that file, see it, and you can mark it up. So nice highlighting tools, different colors to choose from, and comments on the side. So that's what I know of it, but it's all right there in Blackboard Learn. You don't have to download the document to make marks on it.
I think the inline grading tool just came out now in SB 12. I can double check. Earlier this year.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Actually, I think the inline tool is out in SP 10 or 11 because that's where we are at now. We are in the service pack 10 and 11.
One more thing to add to that, I guess, is, we have Blackboard Learn on campus, but we always, and I think, rightfully so, lag, a couple service packs back. So Blackboard's course sites, I think, is very interesting. I use it for my teaching outside the university, and I kind of get a vision of what's coming up, so I can see things before they actually are implemented on our campus. So course sites is a great way to kind of see that, before it happens at your school. Very useful. So the review checkbox, basically, the question is, how do you add the review checkbox? When you, let's say, have like the lesson 1, the learning module, you can use the pull-down menus in there, and one of the options for that lesson is adaptive release. And so to mark review is one of the adaptive release functions. So lots of different ways I could have lesson 1 become visible, or any object within Blackboard Learn become visible. One of which is marking it reviewed. So you simply say that I want them to mark reviewed this other thing before they can see this. So there's a long list then of things that they could click on, and once you choose one of those things, it adds the checkbox to it automatically. You can also release things based on quiz grade. So students must earn 90% or higher on this quiz or this assignment before this thing will show up. I can have things show up based on user. So I can say, Crystal can see this thing, but no one else can. I can also assign things by group. And I can say group 3 can see this, and no one else can. So adaptive release is the magic word for all that, the ability to control the visibility of objects based on criteria.
And then there was a question from Jewel around how do you use course sites instead of Collaborate? Did you mention that? And maybe there's some confusion, but Blackboard Collaborate is for what we use is this web conferencing tool right now, whereas course sites is more for setting up your course, similar to Learn, except it's for individual teachers. It also, as Scott mentioned, you can see if your school is not up to date on the latest service pack, you can use a course sites course to see what the latest features are.
Right, so just some clarification on that. So we've had Blackboard Learn for some time, and that's where the syllabus and the assignments and all that live. And then we also have had Collaborate. Before that it was called Illuminate. So, and up till very recently, they weren't integrated. So you would log into Blackboard Learn as a student to do certain things, and then you would click on a link that would take you somewhere else, and oftentimes you'd have to log in a second time. So for us recently, we now have, I think over the summertime it was employed, where it's integrated. So when I go in as a designer and add quizzes and discussion boards, I can also choose to add web conferencing. I can add office hours or that weekly lecture like we're in right now. So that's an integration there. So, but this, it's not built into Learn. We have a contract for Collaborate on top of that, so we can integrate it. Course Sites, however, is a free service that Blackboard provides, and again, I use it for my teaching in the community, and I can have up to 5 courses within Course Sites. One of the tools within Course Sites, and maybe I shouldn't call it Blackboard Collaborate, because I think they actually call it in the tool set something different. I can't remember what they call that, but I believe it's because it looks like, and I think it's powered by Collaborate. And again, what I've seen, it has all the tools, it has all the ability to upload a PowerPoint, it has the pointers, it has a chat. You just can't record the session. So Sharon, if that's not correct, let me know, but that's my experience with it.
No, you're correct.
So thank you for coming to the session today. I really appreciate it. Crystal and I had a good time, and I hope you learned something about Blackboard Learn and also the 7 principles.